Nerd Soul.
Lay ill kid at OneYoungsta, hold it down, bringing that street geek and nerd soul. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell. Let's go because we got Star Wars talk. Star Wars. It's been a while since I've been able to do that, but we are not by ourselves. No, no. I have two esteemed gentlemen. All right. I give to you Jay Shearer, director, writer, director, and rebel billionaire philanthropist.
I wish that sounds awesome. I'll take the writer director though. That's always good. It's always good to be here to talk Star Wars with you guys. So I'm stoked on this, and I can't wait to get into it.
Cool. And we have the cinematic sorcerer, Solar Gray. What's up?
Hello, everyone. This is Solar Gray, the cinematic sorcerer, coming at you from the Wizard's Tower. And we're here to talk about Star Wars, wonderful Star Wars.
Boy, oh boy.
70s Star Wars in 2024.
Man, Star Wars. Well, okay. So we have the Acolyte. The Acolyte has just premiered its third episode. And I'm gonna go in and throw it to matter of fact, Jay Shearer just finished it, so I'll throw it to Jay. Jay,
Ooh, fresh eyes.
how are you feeling about the show, The Acolyte? Now that you've seen all three episodes, how are you feeling about it?
It's weird just having literally just stopped watching the third episode right now because I haven't even formulated an opinion on it yet. I'll say this: I watched the first two episodes and I was like, okay, this is, it's good. It's not my favorite. It's not terrible. It's good. I like it so far. It's hard to say with Star Wars these days because the episodes themselves are so all over the place. Like, how many shows have we done where the first four episodes are weird and then the next four episodes are amazing and then the last two episodes suck? I mean, that's kind of like what the Star Wars has been.
Yeah.
So I feel like the first two episodes were good. Episode 3, look, the pacing was a little slower. I honestly was expecting a lot more from the first two episodes when it comes down to the final act of episode 3, where we're finally seeing how it all went down to create these two characters, May and Osha, one of whom is I don't want to have anything to do with the Jedi, and the other one who's I'm going to try and kill the Jedi. I think I'm a little bit disappointed in the third act reveal of how the fire went down and all of that stuff. It just felt a little bit anticlimactic to me. But having said that, they introduced some cool, interesting things in episode 3. Look, the strangest thing to me is how much hate the show is getting on socials.
That's strange to you? That I knew it. I saw that coming a mile away. Once they announced who was going to be in front, I was like, oh, here we go.
Yeah, I was like, here we go.
Going in, get ready, everyone. I was like, they didn't like the girl when she was in Hunger Games. They don't like her now.
Let me put it this way. I'm not surprised because Star Wars fandom is a giant disaster. The reason I'm surprised is because, objectively speaking, I went in and I'm like, okay, what are these people complaining about? And I started watching their complaints and I was like, that complaint is about all of Star Wars in the history of Star Wars. That complaint is about the science of Star Wars, which has always sucked. Like every single complaint that I saw that people came up with, it was not objective. It was just subjective nonsense. So at this point, I can't trust any Star Wars criticism. But I will say
that's a heck of a thing for you to say on a show where we're here to do Star Wars criticism.
Yeah, and I just,
I mean, it could be praise. It could be praise. You never know.
Yeah, I just feel like at this point in the Star Wars fandom, I've already said this to Michael, and Solar fits in this group as well. But there's a handful of people that I want to talk about Star Wars with, and there are a bajillion people that I have no interest in talking about Star Wars with because they're just off. They're on a path that is just lunacy. It doesn't make any logical sense whatsoever. So for me, this is not a great show, but it's not a horrible show. There's no way this is a horrible show. Come on, give me a break. It's fine. So that's kind of my initial reaction, is that I'm against all the hate for it, but I do think that there are some valid criticisms that you can make of the show, but I also think there's some cool stuff in the show. So what about you guys?
All right, Solar, initial thoughts. You've seen 3 episodes. Where you at?
So, all right, I'm gonna take you through this one episode at a time with my initial thoughts, and it's gonna be quick. For those of you guys that know my content or have spoken with me in person, y'all know I love me the sci-fi. I'm all about the skiffy. All right, all about the skiffy. And I noticed something for the first time with this show that I hadn't noticed, or it really doesn't stick out to me with most other shows, and that is the production value of this show seems interesting in the sense of episode 1, I was really mad because of false advertising. Okay, you don't push Trinity from the Matrix to Star Wars fans and then make her last just as long as Jada Pinkett and Omar Epps in Scream 2. If you know, you know. If not,
the funny thing is, I'm gonna reference Scream in a little bit, but yeah, keep going.
However, the production value, just the way that stuff looks on film, I don't know if it's a director thing or the controversy of Disney / Star Wars / Marvel / industry in total not paying their CGI folks enough, but it gives off kind of a classic Doctor Who feel where the special effects are so not good enough that you have to pay attention to the story. And I kind of appreciated that from a nostalgic point of view. That was episode 1. Episode 2 was fascinating. I like the cast. I just don't know if I like the writing so far.
Okay.
Now, not gonna lie. Okay, I am not gonna lie. When Get Out was made, Jordan Peele looked at Lupita Nyong'o and said, "You are going to be very tired." And I think someone should have said that to Amanda Stenberg. Like, for real.
Oh, you mean Us?
Yeah.
Us,
When he
yeah.
did Us. When he did Us, he looked at Lupita and said, "You are going to be very tired." Because playing a dual role is a task. That is just truly a task. So there's that. And not gonna lie, I was pleasantly surprised and confused in episode 2, where we meet the Khmer character, because I'm like, oh, don't tell me somebody hired Ezra Miller, and it turned out to be Manny Jacinto. One I love, one not so much. It's easy to guess which one.
Wow.
Yeah, well, honestly, Manny Jacinto has had my heart since The Good Place. I really liked him in The Good Place, and I said, this dude needs to get more work. And yeah, he's killing it in this role, playing a type of character that I really like seeing in Star Wars, which is force, not force. I need to make money.
Yeah.
And I'm with that. I'm really with that. And then episode 3 came around. And episode 3 was what I call a necessary episode. In the sense of episodes 1 and 2 allude to a lot. It's alluding. What happened on this planet? Oh, something happened on the planet. There's a thing called the incident. Oh, what was the incident? What is the deal with this obviously good twin, evil twin story arc? Like, what is it that I need to know on this and all that stuff? And it gave us the origin story in one episode that Star Wars has been known for giving us trilogies to explain whether we want it or not. So I was fine with it. I'm interested to see where it's gonna go from here, but I ain't geeked about it. And I don't know if that's because I'm a little burned out on Star Wars, or if it's because we're coming off the heels of X-Men 97. And it's
It's
like
tough, man.
we
It's
go
tough
from
to-
amazing to fine. No, it's fine. So yeah, that's where I'm looking at with this show. I was finally able to have a conversation with one of my friends about something serious in regards to the fandoms.
Mhm.
And he was able to give me an insight that gave me a little bit more of an understanding. Not that I agree with it on any level, but it's a little bit more of an understanding, which is for older millennials, Star Wars fans and stuff like that. Older millennials, Generation X. It's not just that age-old argument of the fans are the things that kept up the franchise and we feel like we're being disrespected argument that I hear all the time. The newer argument was when we were growing up, there was boy stuff, there was girl stuff. Boys had G.I. Joe, girls had Star Wars. Boys had G.I. Joe, girls had Barbie.
Mhm.
And now that we are a quarter of the way through the 21st century, a lot of boys are feeling like their stuff is being taken away and given to girls, and they're not given anything that's just for them. And I'm like, okay. So
I guess
I hear the perspective.
I guess
I
I can lean with that, maybe.
I can understand the perspective. Do I agree with that perspective?
I don't. I think that's a reach. I think that's a reach to try to cover up the hate that you want to spew. But I'll let them have that. All right, okay.
I mean, I'm not the kind of person to condemn a whole set of people as the worst, in the same category of the worst examples of them. Some people out there just won't like anything that doesn't star white dudes. Period. If it's not for white dudes, they're gonna hate it. Okay, fine. Our customers are always right in their taste. But that doesn't mean that they should try and boycott or make not exist or anything like that. I'm from the school of if you don't like it, don't watch it. We have 1,000 other options these days. But I had the conversation and I'm like, okay. Well, that is a way to think about it. And at least it was presented to me in a way that was what's the term I'm looking for? It was gender role heavy versus misogynistic, which is misogynistic with more steps.
I see what you're saying. It's just that we're not kids anymore.
Exactly.
So, all right, here's how I feel about the show. Well, you know what? I wanted to reference a young man by the name of Keithan Jones. He's the owner of Kid Comics. He runs Black Comics Day in San Diego.
What's up, Mr. Jones?
Yeah, he's cool. He made a statement on Facebook. He said, "Started out decently for me, but episode 3 crashed out. And I say this strictly from a story structure and momentum point of view. The cast is fine. One of the biggest complaints I have of all recent Star Wars stories is there is way too much exposition. Going back to Phantom Menace, I don't want to hear about midichlorian counts or any other scientific explanations that take away from the quote fantasy. Lightsabers don't make scientific sense either, but they're cool. I expect Star Trek to explain itself, but not Star Wars." And the first 2 episodes, I'll say this and I'll talk about Star Wars in general this year. So the first 2 episodes, I was like, okay, it's not bad. I don't like it, but it's not bad. And the reason I don't like it is because I don't like the twin thing. I don't like the twin thing. And I also don't like, in the first 2 episodes, how it seemed to be leading us down a path of the Jedi did something wrong to do something where we have to understand the villain. No, Like sometimes I like somebody being bad just because they bad. Like the Joker, he crazy just because he crazy. Sometimes a Sith can just be a Sith. Like they love power and they're power hungry and they evil. But I was like, you know what? This is the story we got. Fine, cool. It's not too bad. And we had a nice little sort of climax. Oh, go ahead.
A Sith is still a Sith. Jedi are just Jedi.
So I was like at the end of episode 2, I was like, okay, all right, let's see where it goes. I'm not really feeling it. I don't like the twin thing. And I don't like the idea that we're about to do another character assassination, the Jedi, which we've already done many times over, but fine. Cool. Let's roll with it. I'm not against the actors and actresses. I think that's cool. The sets are looking pretty cool. Fine, let's see where we roll. And then see episode 3, we go to a flashback for the whole episode. And I was like, we had some momentum where we could say, hey, we're hot on our tail. Let's go get this, killer, this Jedi murderer. But instead, let's stop for the whole episode and tell this story that now that it's played out, I think might have been better if we maybe just touched on it in conversation. But fine, we went back and we watched this whole episode. I mean, we did this whole flashback episode for a completely anticlimactic, purposefully oblique fire scene. Because I know they're going to be like, the Jedi started the fire and not her. And May's just been trying to clear her name. But I'm just like, I hate this. Now, one thing I did like, even though it falls in the Jedi kind of character assassination thing, is like, yeah, homegirl is right. Y'all over here trying to decide who gets power and who don't. Like, y'all over here kidnapping kids and stuff. Ain't nobody call your name. Ain't nobody even starting no problems. Why y'all here? Ain't nobody call you. Ain't nobody call your name. Ain't nobody paid you. Nobody sent a pigeon. Nothing. And here y'all go, just because someone gets a little bit of power, similar to the conversation that Professor X had in X-Men 97 with the people of the Shi'ar Empire. Talking about like, here's the lesson about power. So I did like that. I didn't really care for the young actresses, but they're young. You know what I'm saying? This might be their first like big, heavy, sort of like heavy emotional thing that they have to pull off together, and who knows how much time they had. But I was not feeling that episode. It was I felt we had some momentum going where we could get like a chase going where we're following this girl, trying to get her and blah, blah, blah. And we halted this whole show. So this goes into Star Wars as a whole this year. This year we've had this Acolyte, and then we've had the Bad Batch season 4, I think 4th season, or whatever is the final season. And we had Tales of the Jedi. Tales of the Jedi, I really thought was good. I thought it was really good. But of course it's animated, but still, a lot of people don't pay attention to animation. But look, like Lee Sean Thomas said, animation is a medium, not a genre. It's just another way to tell stories. Like comic strips is a way to tell stories. Novels is a way to tell stories. Movies is just another way to tell stories. But Tales of the Jedi was good. The Bad Batch was just aight. And this seems like it's going to be in the aight category. And I'm not against something being aight. Like, okay, I guess this is all right. But I think we're at the point where we can do some awesome stuff. And it seems like we're not doing awesome stuff on purpose. Because there's no way you can have something like X-Men 97 coming out of Disney, and then you have this, which is just like, okay, coming out of Disney. Like, I don't want to hate Star Wars, because I don't hate Star Wars. Star Wars has some dope stuff, but I don't know if they don't want to push the action, or they don't want to speed up. They think maybe it should be slow. I don't know what it is, because we open up with an awesome fight scene. And I like the idea of being like, look at this big star. It's like, hot. We took a big swing, and y'all thought y'all were coming in here. No, she's dead. And I thought that it was like the first Scream movie for me. I was like, oh, okay. Oh, so she's dead in the first like 10 minutes. Oh, okay. All right. Well, what you got? So I thought that was cool. But then the momentum of that first fight scene, we slow it down. And it doesn't really seem like there's a sense of urgency from the Jedi Order. Imagine a serial killer of Jedis, at least that we know now. Why is it just like one dude and like his two Padawans on it? Like, and this is not, I am not trying to stoke anything, but let's say if two officers ended up dead in like the same day, do you think they just send like one, what they used to call flatfoot after the person? No. Be like the whole force looking for this person. I've actually seen it happen in my city before, where this guy ended a police officer, and they had like blocks and blocks locked down. They were not playing, and it was not good for anyone who fit the description, and you know what I mean. But
Yeah.
like, so that's why I'm like, it seems like the Jedi don't have a sense of urgency. The story is slowing down. Then I didn't like the flashback, except a couple of things where it's, this coven, they're kind of just kicking it. And why are they living in fear of you? Because you guys are supposed to be the heroes, right? So I don't know, man. I hope it picks up, but the last episode kind of made me not want to watch it. But I'll throw it to Jay. Jay, now that you've seen the third episode, what do you see as what you would say, genuine criticisms of this show? Because it's not that I hate the show. I think this is going to be another middle of the road show, and I don't want a middle of the road. I want Star Wars to be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what a lot of what you're both saying. I think there's also some. Here's one thing I'm worried about, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we don't see anything else about the witches, which I kind of feel we're not going to see anything else about the witches, it's going to be like, yeah, so that was a thing that was a catalyst for, May and Osha to go their separate ways. I'm going to be pretty pissed about that specifically, because one of the things that I feel like they were doing in an extended episode, this episode was long, that's why I was late to this podcast, because I was trying to finish the episode. And in a very, very long episode, they tried to introduce us to the witches in a way that introduced us to new ideas about the Force. Mm-hmm. Now, yeah, we have the witches of Dathomir or whatever, but we don't know necessarily a lot about how they believe per se. But this was a group of people who, like, she literally said, and I agree, by the way, with Solar, that like phenomenal choice for Storm, absolutely. And then her character design, by the way, is phenomenal. Whoever designed her character is great. If we don't learn anything about these people who basically were like, yeah, we don't even call this the Force, right? Like, so here's why I don't like that. If they just leave us hanging with the witches, which is feel that they're going to. I don't know if the witches are bad or good or just a different perspective. And I don't think Star Wars has a very strong history of doing that to the fans. Star Wars has always told us, like, these people are evil, these people are good. This is how the world works. I'm all for changing that perspective. But if you're going to change that perspective, you better be prepared to back it up with some resources for us. Like, there were times while I was watching that I was like, okay, these people are manipulating things and they're bad. And then there was times I was watching where I'm like, actually they're making some pretty good points. I'm cool with that level of gray area. But if you're just going to drop them on us and then just move away from it and be like, that was enough for you guys to understand that these two sisters are on opposite ends of the spectrum and like they're pissed off at each other or they don't understand one another, I don't feel like that's enough, because here's what I'm lacking, and here's why I didn't like that. Here's why the more I think about it, the less I like the episode. I actually like the introduction of characters who think about the Force differently. That's cool.
Yeah.
I love the character designs. That's cool. What I also like the tension of them versus the Jedi. That's also cool. What I don't, and I also like pointing out that the Jedi maybe do some things that aren't always great. That's cool too. What I don't
kidnapping
like,
kids and then being like, it's all right, you can tell the truth. It's like, is this like the crooked CPS like worker that's like trying to like, this is something's just wrong about this in general.
Yeah, I like all that. I do like all of that stuff. I do like the tension that produces. But if you're just gonna move on from the witches and be like, "Yep, they're all dead now," I think that is a huge bummer. Because if you're gonna explore that side of it, please explore that side of it. Like every time they introduce, I know that there's no such thing as gray Jedi, but let's just say for the sake of like not using a better term here, like there's these other people who believe in the Force in different ways. Every time they introduce one of them, it's like for an episode, and then we move on, and it's like, well, hang on a second. That perspective is really fascinating. I can't tell whether or not it's good or bad. I can't tell where it's good or bad. And it feels like we're going to go right back into just picking on the Jedi or saying that the Jedi are great or saying that they're terrible. We can't keep doing that with Star Wars because it's just not interesting. It's not.
And they always get rid of all of them too. Like you had the Dathomirian witches, they got rid of them. Even though I kind of understand why. I mean, Count Dooku could not let that assassination attempt stand. But but I mean, it's like you had Dathomir, and it's like, oh, hold up, like the Emperor is actually kind of shook over the mother. So this is good. This is actually really good. Then it's like, boom, they're dead.
Yeah. And probably my biggest complaint is that, like, because we're not spending extra time with them, I did not buy May saying that she was going to kill Osha because she wouldn't do what she wanted her to do. Like, you can't introduce a character.
That was a little quick.
Yeah, you can't introduce a character who loves her sister and then 40 minutes later, on the same night that you introduced us to her, be like, now she's ready to have her killed. Like, okay, what? That went way... Like, again, Star Wars, you gave us a 25-minute episode, a 30-minute episode, and a 44-minute episode. Why in the world did you not give us 1 or 2 more episodes about why these witches exist, where they're coming from, why they don't like the Jedi, why they think differently about the Force, and also build up why these two sisters go from loving each other to really struggling with one another to the point where one of them is willing to kill her sister. That in and of itself is a compelling show, but you just shove that into 1 episode of a show. Like, that's wild. You can't get behind all that change in that amount of episode. So I just hope that we get a little bit more detail there because it just feels super glossed over.
Yeah, and even when you do something cool like the mother made the youngest Padawan Jedi, like he had black eyes and like I guess she gave him sort of like some kind of disease or something for a second or whatever it was. I was like, that's cool because you don't see her using her hand or anything. She just like looked at him. So I'm like, this is a whole nother level of Force manipulation or whatever they want to call it. And now they're just gone. Goodbye. Peace out. You know, come back for episode 4, everybody. But I'll throw it. Solar Gray, you are the sorcerer of the squad. How do you feel about the witches, their setup, you know, how they were displayed, all of that?
So there is a lot here. A whole lot. So to answer your question, I like the difference in philosophy. I'm right there with Jay. Saying, all right, you know what? I mean, so much, because y'all put out a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm like, check. So, story structure. I got nothing to add to what Jay was saying. He's absolutely, I am in lockstep with where he is on that, especially with the fact that you've got this whole new faction of these witches that are just kicking it. But Star Wars has always been about good versus evil in a matter of philosophy. Knowledge and defense, power versus death. And now you've got this other faction that are like, we use power to live our lives. So We'll be over here. And I like that. I'm there could have been a whole show based on this coven on this planet doing their thing. And you know what? I would watch the crap out of that show.
Yep.
She had me at now, for those of you guys that don't know, I'm really big into a book series called The Dresden Files. And the Dresden Files have laws about using magic, and to break the laws is an immediate death sentence. Like 98% of the time, it's an immediate death sentence. And it's not about justice, it's about limiting power. Specifically limiting power to people who are responsible enough to wield it, because Spider-Man belongs to a different franchise. Now, I like the idea that the mother of mothers was like, yeah, there is this thread that binds us. And I'm like, okay, she's talking about the Force, but they're calling it another name. Oh my God, are they going multi-denominational on this? Let's go. All right. You know, because frankly, I've always been kind of bored with the Force from an occultist point of view. You know, it's like saying electricity is the only type of power that's out there. Regardless of tide power, gravity, all that other stuff. You see what I'm saying? But to look at these witches and say, okay, this is what we do with electricity. I'm like, all right, let's see some of that stuff. The whole idea of the old Rick James song, Unity, the power of many. I'm like, dude, I'm interested in this coven and would like to read some of their literature. So that was really big for me. Now, how much we got of it? Not enough. They dropped some really obvious scenes, in the sense of like, you know, I carried them. They're my daughters. I created them. Yeah, but if the Jedi knew how you created them, I'm like, okay, we're going to be revisiting that.
It's like, okay,
in a few episodes.
Now I see. I was like, okay, so we're going down the whole path of the Emperor and Darth Vader and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, I'm expecting someone to be like, yes, it's not a story that a Jedi would tell. Now, you brought up the character assassination of the Jedi. I will say this. Yeah, the Jedi are getting seriously character assassinated. Not just with their outfits. I don't know what is up with what they are wearing in this show. I'm like, how do you mess up loose-fitting clothing and robes? The answer, poorly sewn yellow. That is the reason.
Man.
And you know I'm not like this. I'm like, if I bring it up, it's got to be super bad. Because most of the time, I don't care. I like classic Doctor Who from the 60s, okay? I'm good with a garbage bag, ping pong balls, and a Sharpie. But this one was a little bit distracting. But the big character assassination that I saw was exactly what you said. That whole hyper vigilant CPS. Like, whoa, these are supposed to be the good guys. Are you telling me they just going out and kidnapping Force sensitive kids? You know, because the way that we've been given, like, all right, when we saw the prequels, we saw Qui-Gon was a little sketchy. You know, he was a little bit sketch. But we thought, oh, that's just Qui-Gon. You know, and they did a decent job in the prequels of showing that Jedi are just in charge. This is how it is. And hey, who wouldn't want to be a Jedi, right? I mean, who wouldn't want this? So we never questioned where all those kids at the Academy came from.
Well, the way they played it, at least I think in the Clone Wars, is they kind of played it like they would come and say, hey, you know, do you want to join? They weren't just like kind of kidnapping kids.
Yeah, it's one of those. You got to choose for yourself. But the amount of gaslighting that I saw in this episode was just wow. Just wow. Like,
and maybe that's why they changed. Maybe because, I mean,
this is one of the things that I was
just
considering.
showed up like, give us your kids.
Yeah, this is one
Give
of
us
the
your
things
kids,
I've
or it's
been
going to be a fight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, this is one of the things I've been considering from a long time. Because remember, this is a prequel of prequels. And
Yeah.
if the Jedi were great at running government, they wouldn't have fallen. You know? So I kind of I have to keep that in mind in my head when I'm looking at anything regarding the Jedi Council. I'm like, oh yeah, you're idiots. Got it. You got cool powers, but outside of Yoda and Mace, y'all are morons. And as long as I keep that in mind, I'm cool. Man, the comments are gonna light up against me on this one. So there was that where I'm just like, okay, well, this is a flashback. We don't know whose perspective it's from. It's narratively coded to be that the perspective is from Osha's point of view. So I can see where she would remember the Jedi's kind of being bad guys, but not as bad as anything else around, you know?
Yeah.
So I'll have to see that in episode 4. But, and this is a really big but. This is a however from the underworld. May needs better writing. Such better writing. Like, okay, we got the twins. Aren't the same, but we don't need to put them on such opposite ends of the spectrum. You know, I mean, yeah, we got you know, I would say more than 50% of Star Wars fans out there have siblings. But in one sentence, you've got the siblings. I don't even care if they're twins, just siblings, saying this sweet poem about completing each other and all that other stuff. And then, you know, it's no, I don't want you to leave me. Why? Because you don't want to mess with Maya, because Maya will set a fire. You know, I mean, seriously. She goes straight from I'm the mischievous twin to flat out what's her name from Arcane, flat out Jinx. You know?
Oh yeah, Jinx.
And I'm just like, whoa, that character took 14 years. This character took 15 minutes. You know, and one of the things that I dislike in all storytelling is a problem that can be fixed with dialogue that never happens. I don't care how good, how classic, how old, how well written. If something could have been switched with a conversation, then yeah, we can stop that. Now, and I say this like it's the reason that Othello is my second least favorite Shakespearean play. Because it's like, dude, just talk to your wife. You know, but the conversation in this one that really should have been had was one between the sisters.
Yeah.
You know, and two between the mamas and the sisters. Where it's like, I don't want her to leave. I am scared to live my life without the other half of me that I have always known. Well, honey, you guys are of one, and no matter how far apart you are, you will always be together in your hearts. Now, will that stem your psycho behavior? And again, maybe I'm spoiled from the other stuff that we review because these kids are not written like the daughters from Evil. Also, check out our reviews on that show. Best written kids in on TV right now because they are believable, they are loud, and they are relatable. These two, they're not. However, I am liking a couple of things about the show.
All right, you know what? Let's talk about what we like. Go on and hit us with that. What do you like about this show?
Now, I still haven't finished Rebels. Okay, I still haven't finished Rebels, which means I don't hate Ezra. But in the Ahsoka show, when we re-meet that character, mild spoilers, watch our review, we see Ezra using the Force in hand-to-hand combat, and it looks awesome.
Yeah.
And this show picks up that torch, which is something I've always dug. Good old Prince Tommen, or King Tommen from Game of Thrones, in this particular episode,
Oh yeah. Good call.
yeah,
That's right.
showed on screen what I thought the fight between anyone and Yoda should have been in any of the movies. Like, dude, I'm just sitting here. Yeah, I'm around a force field that you can't get through. Because Force, ally. I'm small. You got a lightsaber, but you can't touch me. Do, 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 you know? So I thought that was cool. They're showing really interesting and cool ways of using the Force. I am split on my namesake in this show. I really am, because the actor, Lee Seung-jae, is playing the crap out of this role.
Yeah.
I really like his character. Like, everything he says is poignant, but he's saying it in such a terrible place. You know, when he the Jedi come up and they're like, hey, guess what? We're the bad guys. And yeah, we want your kids, your children and your jewelry are what I expect, pretty much coming out of Indara. And, when Osha steps forward, and of course, Trinity is like, now can we meet your sister? Now that we know you lying, and Saul is like, hey, let me pull out my lightsaber. Dude, don't put it. You want to see it? Yeah, check it out. It's pretty cool, huh? Matter of fact, we've been around this galaxy 5 times and we've never met a kid that didn't want one. You want one? You like a lightsaber?
Like, it's just it's so like, it's so wrong.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
and I'm watching this like
I said, I'm split because the Jedi pretty much showed up in a big old spaceship with free candy written on the side, looking for the only kids on the planet. I'm like, are y'all gonna be wearing clown suits and juggling too?
and
because,
of course, like, hey, there's tons of kids and this, that, and the third. It's just, I'm watching this, I'm like, these are some scummy people.
They are.
These are some scummy people.
I mean, fact.
And I don't mind them being scummy, but you can't.
Yeah.
You gotta figure out what you want to do with the Jedi. Are the Jedi going to be the light and the Sith going to be the dark, or are the Jedi going to be this murky gray, and there is no light at all, and then there's the dark?
I think what they're trying to do,
you have to also reconcile with the Jedi we know, and if that's the case, I think you should go further back than 100 years.
Well, see, I think what they're trying to do is to show that the Jedi are the good in relation to the Sith.
Okay.
And really nobody else. And that actually makes a lot of sense to me. Because when you talk about going back to the Jedi we already know, I got to go all the way back to 77. Very first Jedi we ever meet is Obi-Wan, and he's in hiding. And everything we know about the Jedi comes from the last remaining one telling a kid how cool it was so that they could groom him to be a child soldier and he can take out the Overlord. I mean, I'm just being straight up. That was the whole Obi-Wan Luke situation. And then we meet my Jedi. We meet Yoda, who is a true believer, and he's like the Charles Dutton type pastor from Menace to Society. where he's a genuine believer. He wants people to be good, and he doesn't like the way that things are turned out, but this is where he is now. And if going to the Nation of Islam keeps you from picking up a gun and doing drive-bys, then assalamu alaikum, brother. That's really what Yoda was giving off. But those are really the only Jedi that we knew for decades. The remnants of the society that had been exterminated. And
I get you, but at least when they told us about themselves, they were the resilient, that they were just, they were, all of these things. We're like, these were the heroes.
Yeah, and as children, we believed it.
And we're like, they're still heroes. Yes, it's a rough time, but they're still the heroes.
Yeah, and as children, we believed it. But as children, we believed that our teachers lived at school and our parents had never had sex. Then we get older. We find out a couple of things. We're like, wait a minute, Mom, where'd you learn how to roll a joint like that? And it's like, I was a teenager in the 70s. What do you think we did? I'm like, I don't want to think about it. You know what I mean? And this is what we're getting. We're getting 100 years before the Clone Wars, where the Jedi are in charge, and the real bad guy in the Star Wars universe is bureaucracy. We follow the rules, because one line really stood out to me in this show, and specifically in episode 3. And you know what that was?
What?
Basor's not in the Republic. I mean, we got Indara going, Republic law states, hold up, let me stop you there. We're not part of the Republic.
And you know what? Because once again, that's what made them come off even scummier. They were like scummy CPS space cops, because she was like, look, she was like, we're not in the Republic. And you saw Indara's stance, right? Indara's stance was like, so?
Yeah.
She was
Indara
like,
was very much, Indara was that cop that pulled you over with the intention to arrest you.
And I'm watching this, and that's one thing that I will say is dope about episode 3. Since we're saying things that we like, I will say this. One thing that's good about episode 3 is it shows, wow, this is a very interesting, either A, Jedis don't do this, but since they're kind of far from home and ain't nobody watching, they kind of do what they want, or this is what Jedi do and just nobody really knows, because anyone who could stay and talk is too intimidated to speak poorly of the Jedi.
Or they die in a fire.
Yeah, or they die in a fire. So I will say I did like, it was scummy and it made me feel bad about the Jedi, but it was good. It was well played off, because even when they left, she was like, this is about who's allowed to have power.
Yeah.
And now, in my opinion, I mean, of course, this might be a whole budget thing, but and I want to see what you think about this, Jay. Would you have been down with them with a standoff, like Indara being like, so, and being like, yeah, so what you gonna do? Like, because I mean, you see,
like the other mother wanted.
She took out the Padawan without even lifting her hand. So I'm like, yo, shoot. You ain't taking nothing from here. Y'all need to get back in that ship and turn it around.
Yeah, it would have made more sense. But also, here's the thing, right? You guys have done a perfect job of stating like how the Jedi come off in that situation, right? But part of my issue is I don't know how to take a stance on that, because while the Jedi are showing up looking awfully scummy, what if they have information that this is like some sort of human trafficking situation, right? They show up and it's like, look, I created these girls and we're going to make these girls do whatever we're going to make these girls do. Again, if I'm going,
because we don't know anything about the witches,
because we don't know anything about them. So it's like, so I think that's actually, now granted, let me give them one compliment. If they're trying to do that on purpose, they nailed it. Right? Like, if they're trying to make it look like, hey, maybe the Jedi are scummy, then that's perfect. The problem is that I'm going to need a lot more information on these witches. And to your point, look, a fire started by a girl who loved her sister 2 minutes prior and is like, sorry about it, I'm going to kill you. And in the fire, look, we just saw Storm. That's what I'm going to call her from now on because I don't know what her name is in the show. We just saw Storm go full witch on a Jedi Padawan and turn him into nothing, right? We've seen her also use the Force to repel two people. You're gonna tell me that a fire started by like a little girl in a room is gonna take out all of these witches in a matter of 30 seconds as they move around the... Again, no foreshadowing on like what kind of fire that was. Maybe it was a bigger and more intense fire than we know. Didn't really seem like it. It seemed like all the witches basically are allergic to smoke and just collapsed on the ground.
Well, there was that explosion. I think that explosion had some help. I'll just say that.
Yeah. That's fair. That explosion.
I think that explosion had some Force help.
And that would explain the amount of guilt my namesake is running around. Not just I could not save you all, but couldn't save him from what?
Yeah. That's fair. That's good. Yeah. That's a good point. That's a fair point. But to answer your actual question, yeah, that would have been way more compelling if there was actually a fight. Because now look at this. Look at it this way. The perspectives of the two girls are basically all we have to work with. And that is actually decent storytelling. So the perspective of one girl is, you just killed everybody that I loved and I wanted to stay on this planet forever. The perspective of the other girl was, you guys are all telling me to lie, so that I have to stay here with you guys and I'm not cool staying here with you guys. So if the perspectives of the girls were taken like even farther to the point where the Jedi were like, look, she does not want to stay here and you're forcing her to stay here, so we have to remove her. And then the perspective of the other girl was like, I don't want to go with you guys and I don't understand why you're pulling my sister away from me. And the witches were like, we're not going to let you take her. That would have been a more compelling resolution. And by the way, talk about all the cool battles that we would have had in an episode 3, or make this a little bit shorter and again have some other episodes about the witches, please. But after that, in episode 4, you could have had this giant battle between the Jedi and the witches, and that would have been amazing. So it's just a lot of missed opportunity. But I'm totally down for a bigger battle in that episode, rather than just a fire that explodes this. I guess what would you call it? An energy core that's similar to the Death Star's energy core. Man, I don't know. That just didn't sit well for me because from the very beginning of this show, it was like the fire. I mean, we saw her like looking at the fire when she's on the ship, and it's like the fire was intense, the fire was crazy. And maybe there's more to it. Maybe there's going to be more backstory about like, okay, we unravel what the fire is. I hope so, because this didn't really get me to a point where I'm like, yes, that was a great example of a key plot point for a series that made me more interested in it. Instead, it was kind of like, that was a whimper of a plot point. And you said it, Michael. I don't know if I want to keep watching this show or not. I'm down with that.
All right, here. I'm gonna you know what? I'm gonna help out Disney again. They don't never take my advice, but let me fix this for you. I'm gonna fix episode 3 for you. Because in episode 2, May approaches the Jedi that was young at the time. He's like floating and he has the force field. Mm-hmm. And she's like, basically you like sort of like, what you did, so you can to receive the forgiveness you seek, go on and take this poison. So he basically commits suicide because whatever they did on the... Now, of course, I think that fire received some help, but since it's completely, like random and very, very vague, especially right now, and I'm sure they're going to want to like reveal it in the penultimate episode, which by then I super won't care. What would have been awesome is for Storm and Endara.
Her name is Ananesa or Anasea, guys.
Anasea, sorry. So Anasea. So for Anasea and Endara to keep getting hype and more hype back and forth, arguing back and forth, and then in the end, it sparks a fight, and it seems like the witches are winning for a little bit. And Dara gets her hand up and they completely slaughter all those witches. And when they slaughter all the witches, they mind wipe Osha, and they try to mind wipe May, but she can't. She's too fast. She gets away. Now that is the story. Now that gives us May is completely upset and doesn't understand why Osha, because she doesn't understand mind wipe. She doesn't understand the Jedi mind tricks. She doesn't get it. So she's like, how can you be with them? She's like, what are you talking about? And then in the penultimate episode, or the episode before the penultimate, then you find a way for the Sith to unlock those memories, and then boom, now we have the Sith and two disciples that are both just as strong in the Force against y'all. Bam, there we go. I solved it for you guys. Look, send my check in the mail. Send my check in the mail. You're finished. I did this from my house in Virginia. No problem. I didn't have to be in your fancy, swanky offices in LA to do it. I solved it for you. There you go. Like, I digress.
Yeah. So yeah, it is definitely like there's a lot here. Now, do we know how long this season is going to be? Are we talking 6, 8, or 10?
I think it's
it
6
might
episodes.
be 7. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I was on IMDb and they're talking about like certain actors being in this for like 7 episodes. So I don't know if it's 8 episodes, they're not in every episode, or I'm not exactly sure how they're saying that.
Because fact is, we have gotten used to the 6 episode format. So it's like, if you're going to give us 6 episodes, y'all gotta do a little bit more.
Okay, so it's 8. It's 8 episodes.
Okay,
there you go.
So basically, the next episode will sort of be like the mid-season.
Yeah, and so there'd better be something decent on that one. Now when it comes, I want to get back on this whole character assassination of the Jedi thing, because honestly, I like it. I always have. Again, not just because I thought Jedis were idiots for having control over the galaxy and then losing it, because even in episode 1, as much as I didn't like the Phantom Menace, Yoda dropped the ball on that one too. Where it was like, this kid is supposed to bring balance to the Force. Yoda should have been like, yeah, and we're winning. Balance wouldn't be good for us. But the Jedi essentially have always run a theocracy, and we talked about Dune a little bit, and I'm not a big fan of theocracies. Never been a big fan of theocracy. And yeah, what they're doing out there, this last episode really painted the Jedi in a negative light. It started to. In the first episode, we saw what was going on Coruscant, and they're like, yeah, she did it, and we gonna bring her in, and that's just how it's going.
Yeah, they didn't have pretty much any. Well, I mean, I guess they sort of had some investigation. The guy came and ID'd her, but of course, she got a twin.
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
The only thing is when her old master showed up, he should have been like, all right, well, if she's saying she didn't do it, I don't feel like he defended her strongly. But I mean, everybody's kind of going with the flow, similar to in the prequels. The prequels happened because nobody really had the heart to go up and say, hey, Chancellor, are you evil?
Again, that singular conversation, that whole
it's almost like everybody was scared to go against him, but I mean, I guess they knew the sort of power and sway that he had.
Yeah. And so looking at this, just looking at these 3 episodes, again, I'm not getting into any other internet criticism. In truth, I haven't looked at any because it sounds like I correctly predicted what it was going to be. And what I'm definitely seeing on this is a form of storytelling that's very character driven, but not very well executed with character driven. Kind of like action movies from Canon in the 80s, you know what I mean?
Oh, shouts to Canon. Canon had some, I mean, they had action, but they weren't really, but yeah, they had action for action's sake.
Yeah.
But I mean, they still had some gems. They had some gems out there.
They had what we like, but they didn't have much that was good.
You know what? I'll give you that.
Delta
Like, they had
Force
the
was not a
carnage.
good movie.
Yeah, they had the carnage, they had the beat downs and the bullets and the punches and the explosions, but they didn't really. They're not classics.
Yeah, exactly my point. And this has what looks to be character development and what looks to be a mystery, but it's still finding its legs. And I'm not as generous with Star Wars as I am with Star Trek. Generally because Star Wars doesn't tend to get as long a run as Star Trek does.
True.
You know, so they can't afford that first 2 seasons of finding your feet. You know, it's like you get 8 episodes. This is it. Tell your story. And sometimes we get Andor, and sometimes we get Boba Fett. I'm just talking about the 2.
Man, I was so excited for Boba Fett. Oh,
I remember. I remember. And you know, and again, you're saying that it falls into the I category, and I'm seeing this as fine. It's a stepping stone. It's fine. I mean, how can I put this? It did very wise to be on at a time that very little is on any other streaming service.
Yeah, Star Trek just ended.
Yep.
There's nothing. I mean, Max is pretty much moving everything to Netflix anyway.
Evil is on a different day.
Yeah, Evil's on a different day. Anything that I would consider better than this is anime, and that's a completely different.
Yeah.
You know, that's a completely different audience. Even though, like I said, look, it's just a different medium, guys. It's still stories.
Yeah.
But
so when it comes to these Star Wars stories, it's like, if I have to choose between The Acolyte and anything written by Dick Wolf, I've got The Acolyte. Fine. You know? I don't need another special victims unit or another CSI, another thing. You know what I mean? So it's like, all right, we got a sci-fi space thing that's out there. You know. Now, if this were, say, released within a day or 2 of Section 13, well, then I would have kind of a decision to make, as it were.
It would make it look worse too, especially after we just had a finale of Star Trek Discovery, and it's been solid like through. Oh man.
Yeah, and you know. So, I mean, I'm looking at this. I'm liking the creative ways of using the Force. I'm liking the fight scenes. The dialogue needs another couple of passes. Well, either the dialogue or the actor direction. I'm not sure which. But they need another couple of passes. The cast, I love. I'm loving the cast. Again, Lee Jung-jae is working his butt off with what they're giving him. Amanda Stenberg is doing great. Jodie Turner-Smith at this point can be in anything, and I'll just be like, dude, put her in X-Men. Although there is an elephant in the room that we haven't really addressed,
and that is
Yord.
You want to know why we haven't addressed him?
Yeah, we haven't addressed him. I mean, he's Yord, and I'm like,
he's a non-factor.
You're gonna waste this actor on this.
They gave him the standard edgy black guy cut, and just thought that would work. They tried to show him with the shirt off. They gave the ladies something. They let him have his shirt off. You know,
yeah,
gave the ladies a little something. But I mean, I
don't know what it is.
I guess
because I'm exactly. It's like he is now the character where you're just like, dude, take your shirt off and shut up.
And you can have the rule follower and the kind of like the clipboard carrier that's interesting, but he's not
so far.
Like he's not interesting at all.
I mean,
there's a moment where Yord pulls his lightsaber on the guy, the kind of shop guy that's helping out May, and doesn't look it doesn't look threatening at all.
I mean, he pulls out his lightsaber, and you're just kind of looking at him, going, "Really, dude? Like for real?" I mean, God, how can I put this? I was more scared of John Boyega, and
John Boyega,
he wasn't a Jedi Knight at all.
even though there's even though they did Finn super wrong, I would argue that I honestly think, from the way the story looks, I think he was originally supposed to be a Jedi, but something happened during maybe script revisions, or maybe something that happened.
You know, I
that had
smoke,
to
I
do with-
cough a lot.
Yeah, that had to do basically with racism, where they were like, this guy can't be the new lead, this guy can't be the star, this guy can't be in front and be in charge. So let's make him a janitor. And let's just well, what are we gonna do with him? Well, I mean, we already gave him the contract, but we paid him, so just make him run around and yell Ray. Like, oh man, don't get me started. But Yord is boring. He's boring. He's stiff. He's a non-factor. He doesn't look threatening. He was positioned to be the perfect kind of clipboard carrying, rule following, scary guy. Cause it's like, yeah, this guy is kind of like the Boy Scout for Jedi, but he don't play. And I'm not even interested in him, like, slightly.
And yeah, I mean, he's playing a character that we could be like, okay, you're the Cyclops of this team, so be Cyclops.
Yeah, but he's not doing anything. So I mean, I guess we'll see what happens with this, but unfortunately right now we've been having some power and internet problems with Jay, but Jay might not be able to get back on, but I'm gonna throw it over to you for final thoughts and where can they find you, because this show I just don't want to be mean. So final thoughts.
Final thoughts is this. This show is fine. I mean, it's fine. It introduces some aspects to Star Wars that I've been wanting for a long time, which is Jedi combat without lightsabers. What could that look like? And shouts out to the fight choreographers on that. It has a story, but for the life of me, I can't see where this is going. I hope that it's trying and hasn't quite found its way to being frozen in space. Well, in the sense of this story isn't going to be beat with force of combat, but it's going to be beat because of the love between sisters. I'm hoping, but we'll see. But all in all, this show is a solid 3 of a kind. It's not enough to fold. Okay, you're holding 3 in your hand. And you'll at least take the free check while you're playing. You're not gonna fold. You haven't lost. It could go either way. So it's fine enough. Again, if you're just looking to watch something, there's worse. I'm not gonna tear it down because Amandla Stenberg is doing a decent job, especially playing the dual role. She's doing all right. She's doing all right. But the writers really need to catch their stride by this next episode. They really do. And if you guys want to find me, you guys can check out my YouTube channel at Solar Gray, or at Back in the Deck. And you guys can also check out the archives over on Solar Gray or Bid Blurred. Check out the stuff that we talk about with games and nerds and nerd culture and all that jazz. And you can send me an email at backinthedeck@gmail.com. And yeah, I'll say that again, backinthedeck@gmail.com, and let the hate flow to the mailbox or leave it in the comments.
Oh boy.
So yeah,
Let the hate flow.
that's where I'm sitting on that.
All right, so before I get started, I want to give a shout out to Jay Shearer. You can check him out at the How Stories Work on YouTube, Story Geeks, and also on the Orange Grove 55 podcast. We will, have him up again next time we talk about the show. I'm gonna give it. I think I'm gonna give it one more episode. I'm gonna give this one more episode. We'll see what happens. But from my angle, the final thoughts is this is. It's too middle of the road for me. Okay. And I know that Star Wars can be awesome because they've had awesome stuff this year. I think Tales of the Empire was awesome. Well, no, sorry. There's one episode that I haven't seen of it. But 5 or 6 episodes is awesome. The Bad Batch, of course, was kind of okay. It was an okay final season for a show that I thought was awesome up until that point. I just don't know what Star Wars is trying to do because Star Wars has tons of stuff, but it's not either that or either it's not ambitious enough, or maybe they're not taking enough risks. Maybe the fandom has them too scared to try anything crazy. I don't know. I don't know. But this show is just middle of the road. It's not great. It's not bad. But it's not I think not close enough to the middle to keep me watching if the next episode doesn't really hit. Because we've already watched a couple shows like Obi-Wan, like, Ahsoka, where the first 3 episodes is like, all right, where are we going? And then episode 4, 5, and 6 are awesome. And then episode 7 and 8 is like, yeah, why are we here? So I'm kind of tired of this, guys. Come on, Star Wars is awesome. Like, make it awesome. I gave you a quick idea. One of many. I'm sure there's other people online that have given you other ways to spin this, but I gave you a quick, cool idea. If you're going to assassinate the character of Jedi, don't play with it. Go full all out. And then the idea I gave you works perfectly for these 2 sisters. But I don't care about the Sith that's in the background that was like standing on the little rocks or whatever. I don't care about him. Or her, or whoever it is. I don't care. And I want to care. Y'all guys, you got dope stuff. Just do it. With that said, NERD, SOUL, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, podcast, all that jazz. And until the next time that we get to ignite a lightsaber to make sure that we protect the light and fight back against the darkness, we're just saying peace.